The reception hall overlooking the harbor was filled with polished brass, pressed uniforms, and the low hum of conversations layered with rank and ego. It was a joint command event, the kind where admirals, diplomats, and defense contractors shook hands beneath oversized flags and spoke in careful, rehearsed tones. Crystal glasses caught the light, medals reflected status. Every movement felt measured. At the far end of the room, near a display honoring naval special operations, she stood quietly, hands clasped behind her back. She wasn't in dress uniform. She wore a dark, tailored suit, no visible insignia, no decorations. To most in the room, she looked like a civilian analyst or maybe a liaison. Few paid attention. That was how she preferred it. Admiral Richard Kessler entered with presence that parted conversations. Two bodyguards followed at a respectful distance, eyes scanning automatically. Kessler was known for brilliance and temper in equal measure. Decorated, powerful, accustomed to obedience. As he moved through the room greeting officers, his gaze landed on her standing near the special warfare display. Something about her stillness unsettled him. Everyone else shifted when he approached. She did not. He stepped closer. "Enjoying the exhibit?" he asked, voice smooth but edged. She nodded once. History deserves attention. He glanced at the plaque she had been studying, detailing a classified maritime rescue operation from a decade earlier. "You familiar with it?" he asked. "Intimately," she replied calmly. He smiled faintly. "Were you there?" "Yes." The bodyguards exchanged subtle looks. Kessler's expression hardened slightly. "Strange. I don't recall seeing you." She met his eyes evenly. "You wouldn't have." A small circle of nearby officers sensed tension and drifted closer under the guise of curiosity. Kessler crossed his arms. "And what capacity did you serve in?" "Overwatch." The word hung there. Some in the circle understood its weight, others did not. Kessler gave a short laugh. "Overwatch," he repeated lightly. "That was a Tier 1 deployment, restricted roster. You're telling me you were part of that team?" "I'm not telling you anything classified," she replied. "You asked." A faint ripple of discomfort moved through the observers. Kessler's pride prickled. "What's your rank?" he demanded. "Irrelevant here." His jaw tightened. "Everything is about rank in this room." "Respect isn't," she said quietly. That did it. The shift was subtle but real. Conversations nearby slowed. The Admiral stepped closer, invading her space. "You will address me properly." She didn't step back. "I am." A few gasps whispered around them. His face flushed. "You civilians forget where you stand." "I'm not a civilian." The words were even, almost gentle. He scoffed. "Then where are your stars, your insignia?" She didn't answer. Instead, she turned slightly, and as she adjusted her sleeve, the cuff pulled back just enough to reveal a thin band of ink circling her wrist. It wasn't decorative. It was a minimalist mark recognized only within certain classified circles. One of the senior commanders in the crowd stiffened. He knew. Kessler did not. "Is that supposed to impress me?" he asked. "No." Her composure only inflamed him further. "You're implying you were part of that operation. I led that fleet," he snapped, "and I never saw you." "You weren't meant to." The statement was factual, not arrogant, but to a man unused to being unseen, it felt like mockery. "Careful," he warned. "Disrespecting a flag officer carries consequences." She tilted her head slightly. "Respect is mutual." The bodyguards shifted closer. The air tightened. "State your rank," Kessler demanded again, louder now, drawing more attention. "Commander," she said simply. Murmurs spread. He barked a short, disbelieving laugh. "Commander without insignia, without escort, in my event?" She held his gaze. "Yes, prove it." "I don't answer to theatrics." That word, theatrics, struck like a match to gasoline. Without warning, in a flash of temper that would later replay endlessly in his own mind, Admiral Richard Kessler raised his hand and struck her across the face. The sound cracked sharply through the hall. Gasps erupted. Glass stilled mid-air. For a fraction of a second, everything froze. She didn't stumble. She didn't flare with anger. Her eyes shifted from calm to focused. The bodyguards moved, too late. In one fluid motion, she pivoted, stepping inside her reach. Her hand caught his wrist before he could retract it. Her other arm swept behind his elbow, redirecting force. A precise strike to the diaphragm followed, controlled but devastating. As he instinctively bent forward, she rotated her hips and delivered a compact elbow to the side of his jaw. It wasn't wild, it wasn't emotional, it was efficient. The Admiral collapsed unconscious before his bodyguards could close the final step between them. The entire exchange lasted less than 3 seconds. Silence fell heavy and absolute. The bodyguards froze, stunned by the speed and precision. She stepped back immediately, hands open, posture neutral. "Stand down," she said evenly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried command. Instinct overrode confusion. The guards hesitated. One of the senior commanders pushed forward, his eyes locked on the ink at her wrist. "Ma'am," he said quietly, recognizing both the mark and the control. "Are you injured?" "Negative." He nodded sharply and turned to the guards. "Lower your weapons." Kessler lay on the polished floor, breathing but unconscious. A medic rushed in from the crowd. Cameras had not been allowed inside the private event. There would be no viral footage, only witnesses. The commander looked at her carefully. "Authorization?" he asked softly. She met his gaze. "Omega Black." His breath caught slightly. That clearance level was beyond most in the building. He straightened instantly. "Understood." He turned to the room. "This matter is contained. Medical will handle the Admiral." The murmurs intensified, confusion mixing with dawning realization. She didn't linger. She stepped away from the circle, composure restored, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. In a side corridor, the commander caught up with her. "You realize what just happened?" "Yes." "He struck you?" "Yes." "You neutralized him?" "Correct." He exhaled slowly. "You could have broken his jaw." "I chose not to." The weight of that decision hung heavy. Minutes later, Admiral Kessler regained consciousness in a private medical suite. Disorientation gave way to memory. The sting of humiliation burned hotter than the physical ache in his jaw. The commander entered quietly. "Sir." Kessler sat up sharply. "Where is she?" "Departed." "Who is she?" The commander held his gaze. "Someone you shouldn't have struck." His anger flared again. "She assaulted a flag officer." "Respectfully, sir," he said evenly. "You initiated physical contact." The Admiral's silence was stiff. "Her clearance supersedes most in this building," the commander added carefully, "including mine." His expression shifted from anger to dawning comprehension. "That mark." "Yes." He leaned back slowly. "Only operators carry that." The commander nodded once. "And she exercised restraint." The realization settled heavily. Later that night, after the hall had emptied and the harbor lights reflected quietly across the water, she stood alone on the balcony overlooking the dark waves. A secure call buzzed softly in her earpiece. "Report," a calm voice requested. "Incident contained," she replied. "Any exposure?" "Minimal." "Status of flag officer?" "Conscious, educated." A faint pause on the line. "You used minimum force?" "Yes." "Good." She removed the earpiece and slipped it into her pocket. The wind carried salt and silence. She touched her wrist briefly, adjusting the sleeve back over the ink. The mark was never meant for recognition. It was a reminder. The next morning, no official statement mentioned the altercation. The Admiral requested medical leave citing minor injury. Internal reviews were conducted quietly. Those who had witnessed the moment carried it privately. Within certain circles, a lesson circulated softly. Authority without discipline is weakness disguised as ego. Weeks later, Admiral Kessler returned to duty, quieter, measured. At a subsequent briefing, he paused before addressing a female officer. The memory flickered, the speed, the precision, the control. "Commander," he said respectfully, "she wasn't there, but the lesson was." Somewhere beyond the public eye, she resumed operational tempo. Missions continued, overwatch positions reclaimed, silence maintained. The harbor reception became a footnote, a quiet recalibration of ego within high command.
Those who had seen it understood something deeper than spectacle. Power is not volume, rank is not immunity, and true operators never need to announce themselves. They simply act when necessary and disappear when it's done.